Against the backdrop of the economic recession facing the world, and for sure the island train of the Caribbean, all the islands are feeling the crunch right now as it relates to economy. Most countries, most nations, small developing states like Antigua and Barbuda are continuing to fight for the all-important investment dollar. This week on The Journal, we discuss Antigua and Barbuda Investment Authority, what it's doing, and the new plans in the pipeline, particularly as it relates to small business development. With me in studio today is the Director of Enterprise Development here in Antigua and Barbuda and at the Antigua and Barbuda Investment Authority, established some 6 years ago, Miss Jacqueline Yearwood.
Pleasure to meet you. Thank you for having me, Sean.
Oh, thanks for being with us. When I think of investment, I think of monies coming into the country, but your focus is on developing enterprise. Where are we in Antigua and Barbuda in terms of small enterprise?
Well, actually, when you think of the whole term of small enterprise in Antigua, it is a very critical time in our history where we have to focus on our energies in developing small enterprise. What you have in Antigua and Barbuda Investment Authority, we are mandated to look at investment, but in most times people think of us as just being foreign investment, as you quoted, bringing the money from outside. But unfortunately, we have approached it with a two-pronged approach. There's both the foreign and there's both the inward investment. My portfolio, I'm supposed to create an enabling environment so that you have the development of small businesses on the whole, local business, so that become viable. And in that way...
You mentioned creating an environment. Now, how are you creating an environment when people aren't really spending money?
That's where you're wrong. The fact that people are not spending money, it is simply because in most cases probably their income has decreased. Prices have risen, maybe a lot of jobs. But what you have had, and the flip side of that, is that people are looking at ways to earn more income. And with that, most naturally, most people think in the terms of creating their own business, following an idea that they always had. Now the time has come to try and turn it into dollars and cents, because it is necessary in order for them to survive economically.
Okay. So tell me, what's your focus at current? You're looking at developing small businesses, is that right?
For us, we tend not to say small business, we look at local business development. No business is too small. Every business created, even if it employs one person, the owner, is a business that is contributing to the economy, and we must take that into consideration. We are mandated to help these businesses, and basically I tend to look at my job at Investment Authority in the terms of two words: educate and facilitate. There are mechanisms such as the Small Business Development Act, which provides concessions and incentives, which are just the same and if not better for those coming in from outside. The locals have an advantage.
Why do you say better?
Better in the sense that the concessions and incentives are pretty wide and ranging. You have tax concessions, duty-free concessions, we even have property tax concessions. We look at stamp duties, exemptions, a whole myriad of concessions. All of those that any company coming from outside investing in Antigua, the local businesses have access to that and even more. Because whereas those coming in are scheduled according to the level of the investment, we tend not to think of that in relation to the locals. They're not scheduled. We look, we analyze your business, and in most cases we tend to throw everything at you because the aim is to promote local businesses. And in order to do that, you must give them everything that they need. To an extent, because one of the problems that we have to face when you look at local business development is that it goes beyond you giving help. It also has to come from the person who's actually engaged in business. And that is where you have the whole issue of the entrepreneurial culture, which is one that we're seeking to promote and develop.
You've started the groundwork for this sort of culture to be established?
Yes. One of the things that one has to think about, there is a problem in the Caribbean, and I think it's a worldwide phenomenon. Whenever you think of small businesses, there are always a series of factors which affect the ability to open businesses and for them to be sustainable and viable. One of the first factors quoted is always the lack of finance. We have found through studies here in Antigua, conducted by my department, that we tend to put finance as a second option. The first thing is business knowledge. Don't care how much money you give to someone unless they have that business knowledge or seek to find that business knowledge. Most times, to use a colloquial phrase, you've thrown the money down a crab hole and it's not useful. understanding that after sitting for 2 years and speaking to small businesses and their needs, we realize that one of the most important things, we need to educate them.
Are you doing any sort of
equipping
yes. with tools kind of program?
Oh, yes, we do.
I know there's a Mind Your Business.
Oh, yes, there's a Mind Your Business. I think most people are familiar with
yes,
it.
Yes.
The reason why it's called Mind Your Business is that is what it is. The aim is for you to pay attention to your business. It has been an extremely successful program, successful to the point that it has been exported to St. Lucia at this point in time. It's a very simple concept, simple but effective. We give you the tools that you need. You come to us and ask us, you're starting a business, you have the potential to start a business, I need to find out information about X, Y, and Z. We give you that information, and also we provide what other aspects of business knowledge that you are not aware that you do need in order to be successful. And we provide it in a format whereby every single day that you attend a session or a class, you can walk away that evening and you can implement it in your business. And that has been the success. To date, we have 19 courses running throughout the year. We have
run down some of these courses.
We look at pricing and costing, the entrepreneur's business guide. We look at human resource, customer management. We look at QuickBooks. We look at payroll. We do Excel for managers. There are quite a few. We do marketing. All of these are courses. If you realize what has happened, all of those are particular facets that you need in order to take a holistic approach to business. And what we have done with that, there's another twist to it which makes it so successful. All of the facilitators are local practicing professionals. They have been there. They've done it. So there's nothing you can do when you walk into a course to ask, or you have a problem that they can't give you a solution. Or in my times, they might even have to say to you, it's just not going to work. You have to cut your losses.
Even with the best type of training, sometimes businesses do fail.
Yes, they do. And that's a reality. That is a reality. My response is, it is going to happen. There's nothing you can do to control that, because there are factors that will always be outside of your control, and even you as a trainer. Humans
don't always respond well.
No, I wouldn't say respond
don't
well.
Always handle things well.
Not exactly. No, I'd say it's just a matter of human nature.
Okay.
Some will have the perseverance, some will not. Some will follow the route, and there are other factors outside of that. But what we can assure you by going to the courses, your chances of failure are greatly lessened.
Let's talk a bit more about your small business initiative, your small business, the focus of it then. What sort of impact in terms of the economy of Antigua and Barbuda are you hoping to achieve? Let's say, a 5-year plan.
5-year plan? Oh boy, don't get me started.
How long since you've been in it?
We've been there for about 6 years, but
years
it takes time. But one of the, I think, the shortcomings is that we came about at a time where you just got the initial shock from the economic fallout. So we are, I should say, we are ones who got caught in that, and it has affected our ability to provide the services that we would like and the amount of help. But still, we have persevered. 5 years from now, this is what I would like. First, you have a set of small businesses who are applying for loans to any bank. The success rate of having your application accepted should be at least 60% of these small businesses, first and foremost.
At least? And you're
at
being
least
too,
16? No, I'm not. At least 60%. At least 60%, because...
Why do you think 60%? That's
about
a bit
60,
much for small...
No, I don't think so. You're looking at numbers and you're looking at volume. All right, so when I look about 60% of it, I'm thinking in the terms of all of those who are going to try new businesses. But at least they'll be considered, and even the banks, even if they're not, the applications are not accepted, the banks now take away and realize small businesses always being seen as extremely high risk in the commercial banking sector. And the aim is now to have a turnaround in that, simply because they've been educated and the tools have been given to them, the groundwork has been laid, so by the time they get to the banks with their business plans, they are able to present a totally different scenario than what is expected from traditional applications. 5 years from now, yes, I would like to see that our kids, when they write CXC tutors, when they mark the business topics for Antigua, they wonder what's going on. Because what they're going to see, instead of the traditional let us write about food in relation to your SBAs, they get a lot of SBAs coming from Antigua, outlining business plans and ideas from the business students, a totally different focus. And that is one of the things. Because for us, we understand that the in order for us to be successful, it has to be the next wave, which will be the kids, this next generation, those that are born into technological age and techno-savvy. Our aim is to provide the foundation whereby they leverage the use of the technology and turn it into dollars and cents, which automatically should circulate in our economy. Also from that, I'd like to see Antigua, we have plans in the future to set up an incubation unit. The incubation unit will provide a series of services and also help to jumpstart some industries that we have earmarked. And the aim is to, a few years from now, we not just have one, at least 2 incubators that will provide as a, which you can say, a mini college, a mini mecca for when you're looking at small business in development in Antigua and Barbuda. I would also like 5 years from now, and when you think business in Antigua, you never use the word small, you just say local business.
Okay. Tell me about the incubators. Sounds all beautiful, but give me an idea as to how it will work.
How it work? Very simple. Incubation is a concept that most people are a bit confused.
Absolutely.
One of the things, if you will remember, I referred to easy earlier, is to provide all the different facets in order for your business to be successful. Business is not just a fact, even though you're an excellent artist, but you can't, at the end of the day, you have no clue about marketing, presentation, you can't manage your finances, forget about it. You will not have a successful business. But what we intend to do is provide you with all these other facets, give you an understanding and appreciation, and even if you don't have those skills, you at least have the initiative to know I have to go to somebody else to get those skills. What we intend to do with the incubator is earmark specific industries, and what we intend to do is provide both a virtual and also a physical infrastructure, whereby you'll come into incubator normally for about 3 years, and in that 3 years you go through a succession of building blocks, whereby you are given all the tools in order to develop your business and understand the business and how to run it. At the end of 3 years, you graduate, you leave, and as you leave, you're now a viable entity that can go out, take its place, expand and increase. The aim is basically to provide all the factors which are not normally available, and instead of having them to walk around and try to get those factors in place, we have put them under one roof in order to help these small businesses.
Have you ever done maybe a study or overview or review of small enterprises in Antigua and Barbuda?
Yes, we did one in 2008, and actually it was initially because we were looking at trying to find out the number of small businesses.
That's like 5 years ago?
Yes, 5 years ago, and that has changed. We had over 1,267 small businesses, but that has changed drastically since that time, and we tend not to use those figures because what we have seen, there has been a fallout because of the economic decline, and in some cases you have new businesses and even new forms, new types of business we have never even captured before in. Because when we think of it now, if you look at 5 years of then till now, with the advancement of technology, you realize the whole business spectrum has changed. You have people that they just don't get up out of their bed, they stay in their bed, pull out their laptop, iPad, whatever it is, they do their business, graphic artists or whatever, and they sell their services over the web.
Yeah, because one of the things you can do, if you would have been reviewing businesses regularly enough, then perhaps after reviewing periodically, you can share some, public tips.
Yes,
you'll be minding your own business as you.
And that is what we intend to do, but that takes resources, and this time resources are limited, as you know. But there are plans on the table, and we intend to go forward. One of the things that we need to understand is that we can't be all things to all men at this time, because at this point in our history, we're pretty small. There are constraints of resources. We have utilized the resources we have and gone above and beyond. And we have found creative ways. And creative ways of using our resources is one of the things I must say is that we've been very creative in enlisting help.
But you can always be creative, but how can you guarantee that, it's a good idea to go into business, whether small or large, in a recession?
There's no guarantee. There is never a guarantee when it comes to business. Going into business, let us be practical about it, is a risk.
It's not a good time to go into business?
No. I will not say that. What you have found, it has been shown, empirical evidence has shown, some of the most successful businesses and business ideas come out of recession, because what generally tends to happen in a recession, there's a need or want that was never noticed before, and it has to be filled. People get creative and they find ways of filling those needs and wants. Actually, in the case if you're in business, I would say to you, this is a time, especially in the recession, and you're able to stay open. This is an excellent time with the slowdown for you to retool, rethink, re-strategize, and get ready, because at some point in time, it's a cyclical process.
Well, what would you say to somebody who said, you know, I've retooled, I've re-strategized, I've rethought, enough, it's not working?
It's not working. There's probably maybe something that you'd have to re-examine, or you just have to wait it out. There's nothing you can do in relation to that. I mean, most being frank, there's nothing wrong with waiting. There's nothing wrong with waiting, even if you have to scale back. And that is something that business owners don't understand. They always think it is a time, it's not just a matter of growth and expanding. No, it's not. There are times when you actually may have to downscale in order to regroup, refocus, and get ready. And especially now when you're looking at what is happening the economic recession. But also there are times it's just a time that you have to wait before you can expand, because there are times when you expand too fast and you're in just as much trouble as if you didn't do what you have to do initially.
Let's talk about, we'll take a break. We're going to talk more about the whole issue of analyzing business plans, because I'm sure you get many, many business proposals and you cannot accept all. So when we come back, we'll discuss that and a whole lot more. You're watching The Journal. Remember, you can view this episode on YouTube or on Facebook. Stay with us. You are watching The Journal. Welcome back to The Journal. We're discussing small business development here in Antigua and Barbuda, and from the Antigua and Barbuda Investment Authority. Now, Ms. Yearwood, having been in incubation, if you want to call it that, having gone through the first setup phase, 3 years of doing really, really well in business, but now I'm in recession. Why should I scale back, really? I mean, I want to see my business grow. This is not the time for me to cut back, because the public might say,
one of the
smart
things,
business?
what I'm going to say, few will not agree. And it's like, you know, when you're a child and you're not feeling well and they give you really bad tasting medicine, like good old fashioned cod liver oil, horrible, but the side effect is that you're going to feel well. This is the reality at times. It's a recession. Expansion may cause you to just close your doors, period. And you may never get started again. And you have to be practical about it. You have to look at you have to look at what is happening with you. Public perception does not put dollars in your pocket, unless you're into marketing, which is their job, to give the public perception of the company. But for you, the person actually running the business, you need to understand, can I sustain? Can I pay my workers? Can I keep my doors open? And sometimes it is the case, it is not expansion. Just by expanding, it's going to demand more resources, which at this point in time that you're hard pressed to acquire. And in some cases, just think in the terms of, you have to think in the terms, can I keep my doors open? Can I keep my workers employed? And if you have invested significantly in training your workers, you may think in the terms of, what am I going to do? Expansion may do what? I close down. One of the options you may seriously have to think of, you may have to think of decreasing the amount of services that you provide. Some people think of reducing your staff. And most businesses will tell you that is one of their biggest fears, of reducing their staff.
Why?
Well, you have to look at it.
You know.
It is a savings, but savings in what sense? Think of it. In your business, you have trained your staff and you have gotten your staff to the point, maximum productivity. You can't complain about customer service. You are at a point where your staff can even function without you. You have invested heavily. That is an investment. You let that staff member go. What happens? You might never be able to replace them. Who you replace them later, perhaps as the old term say, you've caught your hands and you're able to continue and expand. You have to invest in new training. What I have found in quite a few of my small businesses, they've looked at the whole situation, and what they have come up with in times, they've just reduced hours, because they realize closing your doors, you might never open again, because it takes the initial output to open a business is significant, and we all know that. Losing trained staff, you may never acquire that sort of trained staff, and after you've been in operation 10, maybe 15 years, the investment in training your staff, that is a major use of your resources. So the aim is retain your staff, cut the hours. And it also may help your staff too, because from the staff point of view, you have to look at it. What do I do? Go on the breadline? Do I go home and sit, as opposed to getting less hours and earning some sort of income? But that is to show you these are sort of decisions which has to be made in business. And lots of people think that because I own a business and, you know, everything is well and I just have this a lot of cash, but it is nothing like that. By the time you start to look at business and examine the whole business structure and what is it that you have to do, it is some very hard decisions, strategic moves, and in most cases you'll find people, when it comes to that and they understand what needs to be done, they just don't have the strength to undertake running a business.
How important then are relationships?
Extremely important.
Speak to
We still live in a society, I do understand, for the young ones and for yourself, technology is important, and you have your Facebook and your advertising. But let's face it, we still live in a small society, and in our society, network is critical. And by networking, you form a lot of relationships, and these relationships can make you or break you, and that is very important. And realizing that if it's one thing that we stress in our mind your business, we do create, there's a component which teaches you to network in each class, which we call me time. Each student must present on themselves and their business. And what you have found then, everybody gets to know, okay, there's the person sitting next to me, or maybe they don't own a business, but they work in a bank. I need a service. I call this bank. The banks get customers. I own a landscaping business. Oh, you know, so-and-so is in my class. Let me call this mate. It helps to widen your pool from which you have to choose from in order to get customers, and even for your business-to-business relationships. And in some cases, you're even to, which is something which is unique, we don't think of anymore, you're even able to, due to your relationships, you're even able to barter services that you initially don't have the cash to pay for. All of that helps in your business.
What would you say to somebody, business owners, who tend to leave the management of the business up to the quote-unquote operations or project managers, as opposed to managing the business themselves?
That has to be decision, and it may lie with does the owner have the skill? That is extremely important. Managing, it's a process, and it takes a lot, and it takes knowledge of not just the business itself, of your workers. There are lots of factors you have to consider. Because you generally own the business, that does not mean you understand the business or understand what it takes to make it successful. So if it is the case, you have to hire somebody, or somebody's put in place in order to manage it for you to be successful, and the best thing for you is to stay in the background, please do it. There is nothing wrong with owning a business but having somebody else manage it, because let's face it, you might be the manager and then you don't have a business 2 days down the road.
It's that simple.
It's that simple.
Okay. All right. Now, we're talking about business development.
Mm-hmm.
Do you accept every proposal?
Actually, no. But what we do, we don't refuse any proposal. What we do is that in order to be...
But if you don't accept any refuse?
No, we don't refuse. We work with you. There's a difference. What we do, you may come in with your business plan, because you must have a business plan in order to be approved on the Small Business Development Act to get that approval. And what we do, it is part of our job. We actually work with you. You're coming up with a business plan, you send it to be processed, and we come and we'll look at it and we'll just call you. And we will actually work with you, we'll send you back, we'll even at times help you with research. At times my officers have sat for hours and we worked figures, guide them towards this is what you need to do. These are the questions you need to ask yourself. And we have found, given that, there are those who will walk away and won't come back, but there are those who will say, okay, then I need the help, I need to revise, I do it, resubmit, and they are successful. We don't refuse, we work with you. At the end of the day, if you walk away and your plan is probably not approved, you'll have to think twice. Did I do the work that is required? And what we have found, most people assume you can open a business without a plan. And the old adage, you fail to plan, I say no more.
But then, can I open a business then with no money in my pocket? Can I go into it?
It varies. And one of the things you need to understand when you look at business and financing, you see you've gone back to the fact of financing. It could be you need financing. It may be your funds. How about a family friend? Okay. It could be your family investing, and also it depends on the nature of the business that you're doing. It varies greatly. But one of the things sometimes people think of starting a business, the first thing I need $50,000. You might be surprised you don't need as much as that. What may happen, Just the other day, a young lady came to the office and I was most pleased. She had a very simple business, I won't name what it is, and her investment came out of her pocket. It didn't take her that much to do. She got her sister to invest some basic costs, that thing, but she has started, and I can guarantee you within a year or two, I am looking forward to see her name plastered all over. It's just a matter of what is it you want to do, what is it I need to start, and try to source what is it you need to start. Sometimes you look for unconventional methods. It's not always about the bank. It could be a family member. It could even be resources from your pocket or even a friend to start a business.
Right. Tell me about the businesses that you may not really want. Of course, in Antigua and Barbuda, there are many, many businesses, but there's some businesses or trades that could be considered illegal.
Yes, they are.
And you
There's always the illegal trades, and we won't go there. I'll leave that to people like ONDCP and the others. But under the Small Business Development Act, there's a listing of businesses which we considered approved for concessions and incentives. And actually, the list is so wide. The problem is we had a conversation in the office the other day, and we're trying to think of a business, unless it's just downright illegal, that at some point can't fit under one of these definitions. So there's actually no business that we can think of, unless it's illegal, that would not be considered for concessions and incentives. What we may happen though, when you come to us, we may say to you, you need to look at the business and the proliferation of other people involved in the business, and it will cut down probably your market share, your customer base, where you are. Factors like that we'd speak to, so that when you look at it, you would think twice about probably you'd open that particular business now or even where it is.
All right, but how about persons who would come to you with a mirror or a mask? In fact, yeah, mask is the best term.
Well, put it this way, to come to us with a mask...
Let's say, for example, I want to open a pub, but then I really want to do a sex trade.
A sex trade? Well, we're going to have a little problem with that, because you see, the first thing you're going to have to give me the business plan, all right?
For a pub, yeah.
Yeah, for a pub. We will approve the business plan. Granted, it goes the lines of what we're looking at, what we consider a pub should be, or what the law allows it. If you go outside of that after we've approved it, as per se, what we do, we monitor, and that is something people don't think about, is that once you're approved on the Small Business Development Act, we have the right, and we should, and we do monitor your business. So at some point in time, and you know, we're pretty good. We pride ourselves of being able to find you. Don't care how far you go, because it's a small society, and we talk, and somebody's going to squeal on you, and at some point in time, you have gotten concessions, incentives, you've availed yourselves of all the goodies under the Act, and we do monitor you. So at some point in time, we turn and realize you're having a sex trade. Well, unfortunately, you weren't approved for that. We'll probably have to inform the relevant authorities, and they'll take it in.
Have you had to shut a business down?
No, never.
No?
Never in that. What we see most of the times is that we have gotten, well, I should say all of them, I don't even like the term to say legitimate. These are people who are serious about business, and they tend to be mostly along the traditional lines that we have business. So far, maybe somebody has been thinking about it, but so far I don't think it has gotten past us.
Because they're afraid of the analyzing that they'll go through.
Oh yes, and
daunting task that it could possibly
it is a very daunting task.
But how do you guarantee people that, you know, it's still a good idea to come forward, even as much as daunting as it can be?
Oh no, we tell you come. One of the things with our services is that we do a lot of counseling, advisory counseling. On an average, somebody will come in, we might even spend 2-3 hours just sitting with you, because we realize when you're looking at business development, you're thinking of developing an idea, we need to sit, hear your thoughts, guide you, give you little tips, start to prepare you mentally and psychologically to understand that what you're embarking is an excellent idea. There's that energy, and you know you want to get started, but you need to understand with all this energy, the energy has to be directed along the right paths, and that is it. We'll sit with you and work to help you to map the course that you need to go forward. And that usually takes a few visits, quite a few calls, sometimes sitting with us for hours, and we will always find time to work with you.
And then after the idea, it's now time for the business plan.
The business plan.
What should it look like?
One of the things we tend to say, there are so many examples of business plan. You can go on the web and find one. And that's the beauty about technology. You can find, there's so many examples that will give you a business plan outline. We will even give you one, and what you have to do now is look at it. The questions that were asked, we'll even give you a question. Try to answer these questions and then put it into a prescribed format or outline.
Do you have a criteria for starting a business? Of course, you might determine what my business should be or how I should get it off the ground, but do you have a standard criteria?
The criteria we have is what the definition you go by, the Small Business Development Act, which allows you to qualify for concessions and incentives. And basically, and this is the part where most people, when they realize, they smile. Once you invest in, the maximum is $3 million, so it could be from 25 cents to $3 million. Employ no more than 25 workers, cannot be a subsidiary of another business or owned by another company. Citizen of Antigua and Barbuda, that is important. Your annual returns must not be over $2 million per year. Now, when you look at that criteria, practically every business in Antigua qualifies. The job is now to sit down and, as you say, do the business plan, or we'll even work with you. And the thing is, there are even business outside there who are established and are operating, and they still have the right to, and they should take advantage that they can apply for the concessions and incentives under the Small Business Development Act.
Tell me briefly about the concessions and incentives. What do you offer?
Offer. You can get exemption or total reduction on inputs, plant inputs. And when we say plant inputs, we look at fixtures and fittings, materials to build the plant, not inventory, because we have an issue with that, not inventory, equipment to set up the business. You can get the same and duty-free exemption or reduction on a vehicle in relation to the business. Now, one has to be careful. We're very rigorous in our analysis. So don't come and say to me, oh, you know, I have a small business, fine. I do cakes, all right. I do, like, every Sunday I do about 4 cakes to sell. So that's how many cakes? Maybe 14 to 16 cakes a month. But I need a vehicle to deliver them. No.
But
You
it's
do
part
the
of
natural.
business.
It is part of business. But when you look at it, you have to look at what it is. You bake 16 cakes a month. Can you maintain a vehicle? There's a cost to that, and that is one of the things you don't understand with business. And we have to be careful so when we analyze it. So everybody thinks, oh yes, there's a vehicle to be available, but a vehicle, we look at the nature of the business, how important it is to the business, what part it plays in the business, and the ability to even maintain that vehicle, and that is extremely important. There's the whole issue of property tax. You can get up to 75% reduction on property tax. In relation to, this is the one which most people smile now, because there are 2 things we're certain of, debt and taxes. In relation to taxes, there is a reduction or exemption on your taxes up to, you can get up to 5 years, but that is on income tax in relation to income from the business.
But if a business takes just about 3 years to go, why only 5 years?
Up to 5. Well, actually, it goes beyond 5. At the end of the 5 years, you can reapply.
Okay.
And at time, once you qualify again, but we'll look at your tax records, your performance over the 5 years, and decide you can get up to a further 10%, and the time will be determined by the nature of your business activity and what we have seen in your past performance. You can get things like, when you look at loans, you can get the documents that you use to go get the loans. There can be reduction, exemption of stamp duties. And when you look to build, buy, or transfer land or property in relation to the business, you are allowed an exemption or reduction in the stamp duties in relation to that transaction.
When we come back, we'll talk more about business development here in Antigua and Barbuda and areas that you can think about investing your money. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Journal. I'm Sean Thomas. We're discussing the development of businesses here in Antigua and Barbuda, and with me in studio is Jacqueline Yearwood. She is the Director of Enterprise Development at the Antigua and Barbuda Investment Authority. Mm-hmm. What are the categories that people can invest in or open businesses? I mean,
Sean, there's a list. There are about 19 categories, and just off the top of my head, agricultural, fishing, tourism related, wholesale, retail, personal care, construction, entertainment, cultural services. Basically, it is a very wide range.
What are the sort of non-traditional areas that you
Um,
consider any at all?
I think one of the non-traditional areas would be entertainment and the cultural services. Let us face it, when we look at entertainment now, that's big bucks. What you're seeing now, when you look at it, it's a worldwide phenomenon. Artists, performers, they have taken on a life of their own, and let's face it, they contribute significantly to their local economies, even though they tend to at times earn overseas in most cases. And especially in relation to that, that is an area that when you think of it in Antigua, is not an area that we have traditionally looked at. They say, let us extend the privileges of concessions and incentives in relation.
And you almost cannot limit entertainment.
You cannot. You cannot. When you think of entertainment and when you look at it, there are some forms of entertainment we have not even thought of here, but they're out there, they're making money, and the aim is to encourage it. Because one of the things that we need to understand and we tend to move away from is the fact that when we look at the whole creation of an entrepreneurial society, entrepreneurship is extremely important at this point in time. Traditionally, Antigua has not been one which is geared towards that. It is not part of our psyche, as per se. And now realizing for us to be competitive and for us to be able to sustain our lifestyle or even grow development-wise, we think how we look at the whole issue of entrepreneurship. And entertainment I think, provides one of the easiest ways when we can think of developing young entrepreneurs.
But while we look at entertainment, of course, cost of living is rising, salaries isn't. Banks aren't lending like before. So what sort of guarantees are there for persons willing to go into business?
Well, there is another component of the Small Business Development Act, which is called the credit guarantee. The credit guarantee provides a mechanism whereby provisions are made to help in relation to the acquisition of loans by small businesses. It is there in the Act, and that is managed by the Antigua and Barbuda Development Bank. So hopefully, Sean, you can bring them on at some point.
You deal with loan provision at all?
No, we don't. Okay. We don't do with loan provision. Our job in relation to the Small Business Development Act is that there has, for you to be able to access the concessions and incentives, there is an initial, you have to be approved. Basically, you have to join the club in order to get the benefits. That is something we don't like to do, You've got to pay your dues. And the way we join this particular club to be able to access the concessions and incentives, be eligible for the loan, you must go through an approval process. And that is what we do. We are responsible for the approval process and also for the granting of concessions and incentives.
How long does it take for you to approve a business?
It varies. If you have all your documentation and your business plan and given the right factors, we can look at about a month. But then one of the things we'd always ask the public to bear with us, even though that we are the ones in the forefront with the approval process, in order for you to be approved, you have to touch other ministries and other departments. And what we have done in order to make the work easier, instead of having the small businesses walking to all these various entities, what we have done is that once you bring in the application, the business plan is okay, we do the groundwork for you. So we look at it about a month, unless there are no glitches, there are no problems with the other entities, about a month.
The public has a different view. It takes far longer than a month.
Yes.
It's kind of daunting and frustrating.
Yes, it can be frustrating, but there are lots of reasons. So one of the things that it can be frustrating,
Why?
we cannot control the other players in the game. They may have challenges resource-wise and staff-wise, so we have to wait. But one of the things that the public tends not to say, and we have to think, have they submitted the documentation? Is this documentation what is needed? You may, at times, somebody may submit a business plan and we say to you, no, this business plan, we know it's not going to pass. You need to do some work on it. And they just give up, or they get around to it months later. You may have a case that you need to submit your identification, and there are other forms that need to be submitted, and they're not submitted. And once that happens, there is nothing we can do to approve the process. So lots of times you have to be truthful to yourself and say, have I done what is necessary in order for the process to go through? That is one, which takes a lot of time. And two, not making excuses. We cannot at times control the other players in the game, what is happening in specific departments as per the other ministries. And that causes quite, I should say, a long wait.
What's your biggest challenge in the enterprise development unit or office?
Resources. Resources, it goes without saying. When you're looking at business development, people tend to think because you say business development, you yourself are a business and you should be generating your own funds. At this point in time, it is not so with my department. And what happens in order to deliver the services that are necessary for business development, it requires a lot of resources, it requires staffing, and even when you do find staff, it still comes back to, can you afford to hire the particular staff? It just comes down to resources to me.
How do you counteract the argument that it is the Antigua and Barbuda Investment Authority's business to ensure money comes into the country, ensure that businesses that are developed, and ensure that business proposals meet the criteria so that, you know, the economy can flourish as we would like to see it? I'm sure you've taken some slack.
Yes, we have. We have taken quite a lot of slack, but I think what needs to be understood, our job is to facilitate the process. And we do. There are the concessions and incentives that are available, but they are outlined criteria which are enshrined in our acts, which determine the level of investment, the nature of the facilitations that we can provide, and the services that we do. At times, we tend to think that everything, there's an old adage, I think it's because of our culture and our psyche, that investment and huge investments must always come from outside. There is some claim to that, but there's an untapped reservoir we have not touched. It is the local investment. Bringing in a scenario like when you look at what happened with the British American, when you look at the amount of over 250 million EC dollars left Antigua, that would have been money that was in the country that should have been invested. So when you look at that scenario, you have to think, well, you're saying to an entity, oh, your job is just to bring in investment. But we're also saying to you, yes, but there's that other part where we're creating the environment for you who have money inside to invest. Can you imagine if that money was invested locally, what would have happened? And that is one of the things that we have to look at. We have to re-examine it ourselves, both culturally and economically now, and realize the time has come in our history in that we need to create for ourselves the type of wealth that we want to see and we want to achieve. And lots of times, just by a little self-help and investing in ourselves, it can help. You have to look at investing in yourself. You can't expect that if you want to open a business that the funding should always come from somewhere else. You have to make some sort of investment. And that is one of the things that we need to understand and change in the way we think. We need to invest in ourselves. And what you're going to find, once you have shown that you're willing to invest in yourself, others will invest. And that is one of the things that we have not addressed.
But there are always limitations.
There will always be limitations. Don't care where in the world you go, there are limitations. There are rules to the game of investing, and we just have to pay attention to them.
And isn't it the investment authority's responsibility to get me over these limitations so
and
that it doesn't feel that bad?
Yes, and that is what we do. But I know the perception is that at times
you hold back.
We hold back. But it is not a matter of holding back. We have to do what we're done. It has to be done on facts. We have to do the analysis of the business plans. We have to look at the implications to the economy. And there are lots of other factors that have to be taken into consideration. And one must understand that we tend to find there are a lot of people who, I should say, shout the loudest. And these are the ones that we listen to. But at times, behind that shout, you have to pay attention. Has the work been done? What is presented? Has it been thoroughly analyzed? What are the implications for the country and for the economy? And that applies to every business.
How do you envision that this grand idea of small business development will impact the job market in Antigua and Barbuda?
Very simple. Every small business that begins to operate, even if it's a one-man operation, that's another job created. Let me give a very simple example. That one job pays Social Security, medical benefit, education levy. You pay your taxes. What happens, that is translated into money in the economy. You buy goods and services from other people. What happens? It circulates. And with that circulation, wealth, the process of wealth creation has started. And we need to understand that at times we tend to take a very, I should say, for the want of a better phrase, a very highfalutin view of how the economy runs. It is basic. What you put into it and you leave it in to circulate in the economy, it multiplies.
Your views on that issue of somebody coming to your office and wanting to start a business, but of course I think that I am being limited because I'm known to be aligned with a political party, or I am a political figure, so the authority is showing some bias, or may not be.
I find that very amusing.
I'm sure you get that all the time.
I find that very amusing in that, come to my office. I dare anyone to come to my office now, ask to see me or any of my offices in Enterprise Development Department. We don't see in the terms of politics. we are very, very focused with tunnel vision. All we see is the business idea that you want to pursue and how can we facilitate it. When you look at business development, there is no place for politics, race. Even at times we have to even look past the whole issue of even religion, unless it may have an effect, or maybe it's a product you're producing that may be kosher or something that found the market you want to tap. Like suppose you want to decide you're going to do barbecue pigtails, which is a big thing, and then guess what? You're going to set up in an environment where you have a lot of Adventists. Bad business idea. We'll have to say you have to look at the religious connotations in relation to that. But for us, we're just an open door. We don't see that. All we see is an individual willing to follow an idea, a dream, and how they'd like to concretize it by opening a business. And that is what we concentrate on.
There's a perception that the Investment Authority has this category as to who can apply for business. How would you respond to that?
Look at the Small Business Development Act. If you do not qualify on the Small Business Development Act, you'll probably qualify on the Investment Authority Act, in order to make sure that all businesses and different levels of capital input are covered. We have two acts. There's the Overarching Investment Authority Act and the Small Business Development Act. So to say that someone is limited, I think would depend on perhaps with you, what you have limited yourself to, and perhaps the nature of your business, which might be legal.
What are some of the plans in your...
Especially in my department, we're envisioning that we're looking forward to creating that whole incubation concept, bringing it into fruition, both the virtual...
How soon are you hoping to see this come?
Well, we're hoping by the end of this year that resources permit, we can start. We already have the business plan for that, and if you notice, we have to have a business plan to even engage in some of our activities, and we hope by the end of the year we'll be able to secure some resources in order to go forward. One of the plans is that we hope to expand the services that we offer at this point in time. There are other areas that we know there is a deficit in relation to small businesses, such as like product development and capacity building in other areas which are not really under our purview, and the aim is that we can expand, get more officers, get resources and team up with other organizations, be it local or international, in whereby we can offer these services to small businesses. And one of the things I'd like to take this opportunity to say is that one of the things when you think of ABIA, and especially the Enterprise Development Department, which works well, we never work alone. We have strategic partnerships with both the commercial banks, the credit unions, the NGOs, education, individuals, other statutory bodies, other larger companies, and that is the aim of how we see our job. our job is to provide an environment whereby doing business is not a one-man, it is just the responsibility of the ABIA. It is a responsibility of all the actors in the economy, and those include all of our social partners who have been able to team up with us to execute programs.
Do you feel like you're achieving this mandate or this goal? Honestly, do you feel that way?
For me, from a personal standpoint, I think we are beginning the process of getting some work done. It is just the beginning, but we are building on it. We're in the process of building that essential platform which is necessary. And once the resources are there, we know we'll be adding quite a few more floors as the years go by.
Where do you get your greatest sense of satisfaction? Is it seeing a business swing its doors open, or?
No, my greatest satisfaction, which at times can be it can be a bit, is that I'll go and do a simple task, like go to the supermarket to buy bread, and somebody comes up to me and said, I've been to one of your courses, I got so and so done. I came into the authority, and your officers did with you. That is my greatest satisfaction, to have the public being able to see that we are approachable, our doors are open, and they actually can come to us, and they do get some sort of help and assistance. That is the greatest satisfaction for me.
Your final comment, I'm going to give you a chance to encourage the public to still come to the ABI, the Antigua and Barbuda Investment Authority, for support, advice, and counseling in terms of business development, even though they might be encouraged to wait a little longer to open business or to start business.
I would like to say to you, to the public, is that opening a business in most cases will be life-altering, will be life-changing. That goes without saying, be successful or not. But what I would like to say to you, that once you're even thinking about it, it does not necessarily mean you're going to do it now. At the doors of the Investment Authority, we are open, we are available, we are approachable. Please come in and ask. Sometimes this is just a question you may ask. You may just need to seek some sort of advice, some sort of guidance. We are open. It is free. There is no cost as per se. And at this point in time, yes, and at this point in time, especially the economic constraints that we are facing, this is probably the best time to come and make your inquiries, so that you can now, quote unquote, line up your ducks. So when the opportunity avails itself, when you think you are ready, you will have all of the horses lined up, so you can start the race towards becoming, I should say, wealthy and productive and contributing to the economy.
Well, that's all the time we've got.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks for being with us. I'm sure there's a lot more that you want to talk about, but we've got to go. Thanks again for joining us on this edition of The Journal. Remember to tune in next week for more. View us on Facebook and also on YouTube. That's all for now. I'm Sean Thomas. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Gentlemen.